Okay, guys, so we're going to start. This is going to be the last bit of Chapter 4, Section 1 and 2. I would like to add a couple of things about um, the last bit of the previous recording. So in it, on page 98, I didn't really go over the populations and why they are like they are. And so a couple of things that I wanted to talk about really quick to add into that is that in the agricultural populations, we need more offspring in order to run the farms, in order to take care of the animals and that kind of thing. And so I finished up, I believe, and I hope this doesn't screw you up too much, that if it doesn't make sense, first off, if it doesn't make sense, shoot me a message. But one of the things that was really great, and I didn't discuss it a lot, although right on page 100 in your text, they show something about the population and growth. And if you look at those, like, what am I looking at here? Population growth rates of the countries. And so if you look at that, you'll see that countries that are typically warring countries, that are agricultural countries, and less economically stable, you'll see that their growths are higher. And then when you look at the more what's that word? I don't know. Where's Michaela Briggs in order to give me my word that I'm looking for? More developed countries. There we go. She must have been thinking about it right then. You'll look at their and see that their population growth rates are much lower. And so that's due to a multitude of things, but it's mostly due to the fact that their offspring are able to get older and reproduce and have a high fitness rate. Whereas those populations with younger children that are dying, or adolescents that are dying in wars, and people that die before they reproduce, they have to have a higher birth rate. So that was just one of those things that I wanted to stop and go back to on the last video. So these 2 pages that we're going to talk about, well, actually like 2.5, 100 to 100, the top of 102. First off, it starts off with zero population growth. And that's a really simple mathematical formula. I think maybe you can see it right here. So if you take your birth rate and your immigration rate, those that are coming in, those people that are coming into that population, you add them to your death rate, which is your death rate, and your immigration is going to be a negative number, right? So if you take away your death rate and your immigration rate, zero population growth is when that number equals 0. That means you have a stabilized population. And so hopefully it keeps you right there at that carrying capacity limit that you were reading about. So the next thing I wanted to talk about, and that was just basically all of page 100. All right, so we're going to go on to page 101. And so this page, these graphs right here, are really important. And one of the things that they do, and so the first thing we're going to look at, my mini little whiteboard here on my wall. And so the first thing we're going to look at is these age structure growths. And so age structure growths are taking males and females, and they're putting on either side of the growth rate, or the chart that's given there on page 101. And so in each of them in 3 different groups. And so they're looking at your pre-reproductive groups, your reproductive groups, and your post-reproductive groups. And so you guys are going to be the pre-reproductive, hopefully. Hopefully you're all in the pre-reproductive. And my children, all right, are going to be in the reproductive age group. And then me, since I'm old, I'm post-reproductive. And what I want you to do for just a second is stop your video. And I want you to think, why is it important that we look at specifically 3 groups and why we break it down into 3 groups. Why it's important for us to know the numbers for these 3 groups. All right, I'm going to stop it right here for just a second. I'm going to go back and, oh no, I can't pause it. Never mind, because I forgot it doesn't. Maybe it will. Hang on. All right, so in your notes somewhere, it's a really good idea. Why is it important for us to know the numbers for each of these 3 groups? Pre-reproductive, reproductive, and post-reproductive, and understanding males and females, right? So why is it important that we separate them between males and females? And why is it important that we look at the 3 age groups? So first off, all right, we need to look at the males because males are giving us our sperm for our reproduction, right? And females, as much as we wish, we can't reproduce all on our own, all right? We're no anomalous lizards where we got both parts, okay? Pre-reproductive. It's really important to look at pre-reproductive because if we have a high youth population, and if we're going to look right down here, so we have a high youth population, but then we look and we see that we don't have a very high reproductive population. That's probably going to be really bad for our population. We're going to have decreased growth. We're not going to have people that are going to be able to reproduce because they're getting killed off when they're younger, right? And so the other thing is if we don't have that middle population, that reproductive age, we're not going to have people to take care of the post-reproductive. And so society has to look at that. And we look at, like if you're in Japan, generations, you'll have 3 or 4 generations of family living together in a single household because they all take care of each other. But if you don't have any youngers, they're not helping to take care of the older people. And then the people that are supposed to be working and bringing in the money can't do it because they got to stop and take care of the old people. So it's really important to be able to understand these graphs and understand why and what happens. You can often see that when we look at these graphs, we can see where deaths are occurring. Is it right here? Kids aren't growing to these older ages. And the reason that's happening is there's poor immune system, there's poor medical systems, there's poor food, something like that. And so we can look that we've got to build over here in Kenya. We have to have a huge younger population. And then as we get older, right, so starting a war, starting a battle, starting to go off to the rebels, right? And so if they're dying off here, they're not reproducing, and therefore there's not going to be an older population. It's huge. That's all that's about. If we go down and we talk about the human carrying capacity rates, right? We talked about that at the very beginning, that the earth has its limits, right? We have our limits and we're pushing them. I mean, if you look at today, we're pushing. We have high medicine. We can live to a lot older age. Just 100 years ago, the average age that people lived to was 54 or 60. And now we're living to our 80s and our 90s and even our hundreds and not having a problem with that. And how much is the earth and society able to sustain that? So that's one of those things with human carrying capacity. Go over to page 102 and they just basically are talking about, they're showing these countries right here up at the graph, estimated hectares of land in use. So this is how much land we need for an individual to survive, right? Look at the United States. We need lots of land. We are not using it very wisely. Germany, Brazil needing less land, Indonesia, Nigeria, India, right? And if you look at the populations of India, you'll see that they have a huge population and lots of people living in specific areas. So is it feasible for the earth to sustain this kind of thing? And that's a couple of those questions that we're going to continue to look at as we go. So I believe your questions that you had to answer were the differences between age structure graphs of non-growing, slowly growing, and rapid growing countries. And then question number 5, how newly emergent diseases might affect the population size. So good luck. I know that was quick, so I hope it works. Have a great day, guys.